I'm Dr. Jillian Wilson.
And I'm Dr. Roseanne Lisak. And this is the Momentum Parenting Podcast,
A podcast that covers all things parenting.
Each week, we will discuss effective strategies and topics to help you in your parenting journey.
Because parenting's a marathon, not a sprint.
And we are here to keep your momentum going.
Welcome to Season 1 of the Momentum Parenting Podcast. Welcome to the Momentum Parenting Podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Dr. Jillian Wilson.
And I'm Dr. Roseanne Lisak.
We're so excited to have you here for our second episode. And today we are going to be talking about evidence-based practice and why using evidence-based techniques and strategies is important. So before we start that topic, we are going to always begin our weekly episode with a parenting fail somewhere from the internet. Now, I want to preface this by saying just because we're calling it parenting fail doesn't mean that these people are failure parents. They're not bad parents. It's just something silly to start the podcast with, right? We all have parenting fails at one point or another. So this is not judgment-based. It is just silly and a fun way to start.
If we can't laugh at ourselves, Jill.
Right? Like, what is the point?
If you want to hear our parenting fails, feel free to go check back at the first episode. We share ours as well. So This is just something that's fun. I ran across this and I loved this. So a teacher is having their students make Mother's Day cards. As I've gotten one every year from all three of my children. And so she asked her students to write what their mom does best. So they're in kindergarten. So this is when the teacher, writes down verbatim what the child says and dictates. So he dictates the card. She writes it down. And mom opens up this beautiful handmade Mother's Day card. And the mom says, "My child knows me so well because he said, quote, she likes to sit on the couch and text." I love this because clearly this mom does so many more things than sit on the couch and text. But from his little perspective, that's what he sees her doing and enjoys it. And so that's what she likes to do.
She had great enough humor to write this down somewhere because she feels confident in her parenting that is not all that she does, right?
Yeah.
Gosh, kids that age, man, you can't get much past them.
Exactly.
They're watching all the time.
All right, let's dive in.
Oh, my goodness. Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to lob this first question to you. What is evidence-based practice, Dr. Wilson?
Oh, that is a great question. So evidence-based practice. This is essentially when you are using strategies, techniques, protocols, whatever you want to call them, that have been tested and reviewed by colleagues that have expertise in the same area. It's almost like taking a test drive to see if some sort of strategy works and taking data on it and showing some sort of experimental control, whatever that may be for the type of project it is. And
having other people in that same field check to see what the research you've done was done correctly.
Yes.
It really holds it up to a standard that allows for whatever the results are. And usually what gets published are things that work. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes things that don't work don't get published. But if something gets published, that's saying, hey, I tried this out and I think this strategy works. And then there's other experts in the field who read this and say, yeah, it seems like you put together a really good model here. You did a really sound research project. And we also agree that the results that you have seem to work. Mm-hmm. And what's helpful for this is it means that we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. Once we get some feedback that, hey, this strategy is effective, other people think the strategy is effective, then what happens is other people try it and other people try it and they say, yeah, we see it's effective too. And
Exactly.
that's where other researchers and other people in the field who are at that level can agree and say, the claim that you made, Jill Wilson, that this is effective, we agree with. And we sort of put our stamp of approval that this is an effective strategy. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time. So let's talk through some examples.
Well, also, I just want to put out there, when you hear the phrase, this is a peer-reviewed article, or this is peer-reviewed literature, that's what this means,
Mm-hmm.
is that it has gone through a quote-unquote jury of your peers in the field for them to give that rubber stamp, like you're saying,
Yeah.
right? So anytime you hear peer-reviewed, that's what I want your mind to go to. So before we go into examples, I just want to point out that there are bad actors in the publication field, as there are everywhere, that publish research that has falsified data, or maybe not falsified, but like nudged in a certain direction, or they don't, like you're saying, they don't publish certain data because it doesn't meet certain standards that they want to meet. But a majority of the time, that's not what we're talking about, right? But I do think it's important to address that before we move on to examples, that does exist. We
Absolutely.
recognize that does exist, that those people are out there, they will continue to be out there. But a majority of the people in academia running these studies and doing these projects are in it for a good reason and want to contribute to the literature in a meaningful way.
And I'll point out also that the people who are doing poor research and the bad apples out there, that's where we have things called replication studies. Ah,
Mm-hmm.
Jill, you published this thing. Oh, I wonder if I could replicate it and see if I can get the same results. And the reason we can sort of find these bad apples is because someone will be like, I tried to replicate exactly what you did and I couldn't find it. Oh, I tried to
Mm-hmm.
replicate also what you did and I couldn't find it. So we find those
Yep.
bad actors when, again, through the research process, the evidence-based process, to say, hey, we've all tried to do what are claiming happened, and we can't do that. So we need to take a look again, maybe at that original article. So there are processes
Mm-hmm.
also to search out and find those bad apples and hopefully get them out of the bushel.
Okay, examples. Go ahead.
One of the examples of an evidence-based practice is the 3-day toilet training. There's a lot of research on weekend toilet training of what that looks like and what that feels like. I've done a lot of toilet training in my in my training. I've done a lot of toilet training in the practice and working with parents, and I've done a lot of training in my own household. And there's a lot of research to support a 3-day toilet training with some similar components. You increase the amount of fluid that a child drinks. You have them sit at different intervals of time, and then you hopefully give them some really positive feedback after they are successful. And there's a lot of research to show that, and there's a lot of success with people who've used that training. Now, again, does that mean everyone has to use a 3-day toilet training? No, absolutely not. But there's a lot of research to say that, hey, if you're looking for a quick toilet training method, this is something that you should try because it's worked for hundreds, if not thousands of people already out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another example is the idea of what we sometimes call logical consequences. And when we say the word consequences, we don't mean it in a negative sense, like this is the consequence of your behavior. It's just the result of whatever's happening. And matching the reason for a child's behavior with an equivalent consequence helps us understand how to move forward with managing that behavior and determining the appropriate next steps when providing those consequences for that behavior, whatever that may be, whether it be great, cheering and getting excited, or not so great, of maybe you miss out on something exciting because of some sort of situation occurring.
Another parenting strategy out there that has a lot of really good support in the research literature is teaching a child to use appropriate language to get what they want instead of engaging in problem behavior. So this is an example where your child is whining and whining and whining and whining. I want a snack. I want a snack. I want water. And teaching them instead to say, "Can I have water, please?" And giving them more appropriate language to get what they want instead of engaging in that problem behavior. There's actually a lot of research out there. The technical term is called functional communication training.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of research out there to support that type of intervention and strategy so that children can engage. They can still, what I like about this one in particular is that the underlying want here, water, a snack, might be appropriate.
Attention. Yeah.
Attention is appropriate. It's just the
Mm-hmm.
way that they're going about getting it through that whining, and for me, whining is like nails on a chalkboard, is just not the best way. So teaching them a more functional way of and a more appropriate way of asking for what they want actually has a lot of research support.
Yeah.
And why is this all important? I talk with parents all the time. Parents have a limited amount of time, money, and effort. You want something that has the best chance of success. You do not
Mm-hmm.
have, at least my understanding of what I am as a parent, right? And when I talk with a lot of parents out there, there's not an unlimited amount of time, money, or effort. You have to allocate it appropriately. So if you're going to try to do something that has a lot of support out there already. It's worked for
Mm-hmm.
hundreds and thousands of people already out there. Well, that's a good place for you to start. And you really want to steer away from something that just sort of like, it sounds good. It
Mm-hmm.
feels like it should work. No, you want something that's going to work. End of story.
Yep. 100% agree with that. And that kind of leads us down the path of this new kind of movement toward gentle and responsive parenting. We talked about it a little bit in our last episode, and gentle parenting sounds so great.
Who
It
doesn't
sounds
want to be gentle?
wonderful,
Who doesn't want to be
right?
gentle? What kind?
I would love to be gentle all the time, and boy, do I try. But there's actually no data that supports the gentle parenting approach yet. Maybe there will be in the future. But right now, there's no peer-reviewed literature that supports the use of gentle parenting to help our child learn resilience or communication or emotional regulation skills, any of that. Even though it might seem like it does, it might feel right, it might feel like we're going in the right direction. Right now, all our data that we have is what we would call anecdotal or story-based, what we hear from other people. And like we said in our last episode, that might be great for a certain amount of people. That information might work really well for a certain subset, and it might not work well for other subsets. And I think what we want to put out there is that for those subset of people that it doesn't work well for, that's okay. You don't need to feel like a failure as a parent because that particular technique doesn't work for you. And there's other techniques out there that are evidence-based that have been shown in the literature time and time again to be effective that will work and that can boost your confidence as a parent again.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah. And
So,
I
yeah,
always
go
think
ahead.
of it. I always think of the analogy I use with a lot of parents is that if someone's sick and needs surgery, and you want to know that that surgery has worked on hundreds of people, not just like your next
Mhm.
door neighbor, Tom. Like it worked on Tom, it's going to be good enough for me. You want
Right.
to actually know that it has worked on
Right.
100 other people, even thousands.
Mhm.
You don't want it to just say good. You don't want Tom just be like, oh, it worked on me. You should be fine.
You should give it a try.
Just give it a
Give
try.
it a shot.
Give it a
Yeah.
shot.
Mhm.
Now, this is a much lower stakes than just random surgery. But
Mhm.
the idea that if we're going to talk about strategies for your kids, you want to know that it has a chance of working and it has been tested. You talked about it being test driven. You want it to
Mhm.
know that there is some support out there. And otherwise, I really feel that I'm an unethical practitioner. I think it's a sin to waste the time of an already stressed out parent. If you are looking for strategies because you're very stressed out because your child might be driving you up a wall because parenting can be really stressful. The idea that I would waste the time of an already stressed out parent to, throw pasta on the wall and see what sticks. That's not the best way of going about
Right.
really helping parents and giving them the strategies that they need. So the
Yep.
idea of finding things that have already worked. One example that I used often is it's my ketchup example from the feeding clinic. I was
Mm.
working with a 9-month-old baby who had never eaten anything orally. She had never swallowed anything by mouth. She had a feeding tube inserted after she was born, and they'd been trying to get her to eat through her mouth for the last 9 months. And I was sitting during the evaluation with the family, and I said to them, well, have you been doing therapy? Has she gotten any support or treatment this far? And they said yes. And she's been doing amazing. And so I was really excited to hear what they'd been doing. And they said, we've been working with someone every single day for, I would say, the last 6 months. So since she was 3 months until she was 9 months, every day they were working with someone for the last 9 months. So 5 days a week during the week. And I said, that's
Oh.
amazing. That's wonderful. How,
Mm-hmm.
what does she be able to do? And they looked at me and they said, she can lick ketchup. And my heart sank
Yeah.
because this family was so excited to share that their daughter had made progress, but 6 months and all she was doing was licking ketchup. Really, it gave this family such false hope that their child was making progress. The good
Yeah.
news is, after being in our clinic for about 4 weeks, she was fully off of her feeding tube and was eating all of her food orally because we were using evidence-based strategies. And that
Yeah.
is meaningful, real progress.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel like the idea that we would give parents false hope, or the idea that we would really not give the highest level of care of strategies and interventions that we know has been successful with other people, other children, really is just really a shame.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what's important is giving some examples of this. So licking ketchup after maybe 1 or 2 sessions might be a huge change. What you're saying is after that 6-month time span, that's a long time to be working on that one goal. And so what we're looking for when we have kids come to see us, and what you mean by that meaningful change that you can quantify, that you can see on paper, is that, or I guess in paper or with your eyes, you can see it happening, is that your child is engaging in like 45 minutes of tantrums a day, right? A lot of tantrums, and we've reduced it down to 5 minutes. Right? Or we want to start exercising 6 times a week, and we're going to start with 2 and work our way up there. And then once we get to 3, then we'll get to 4, then we'll get to 5, right? These measurable changes that can be seen and documented, they're observable and measurable. That is what we want to be able to be working with so that we can demonstrate that that change is actually occurring. And although licking ketchup might be a huge goal for day 1, day 2, the goal should be higher as you move through the process of working with your kids on a specific goal. If it's tantrums, if it's eating at the table, if it's talking back or anything like that. You want your goals to be measurable. And I think that making sure that we're staying in that realm is really important for that bigger picture of, is this actually effective, and am I spending my time, money, and resources in the right place?
Exactly, exactly. So we're going to end all of our podcast with a take home.
Mhm.
What can you like grasp and take home from this podcast? Think about that when you're considering a new strategy. Is there something out there that already has some support for being effective in the problem that you're trying to address? There's so many resources online to look up. Don't trust everything online, but the best place to start is really find a place where you can go for real evidence-based strategies to consider out there before you, again, throw pasta at the wall and see what's going to stick. Trying to find what has already shown to be effective, and finding some people that you can trust to be able to guide you in the right direction.
Another thing to keep in mind while you're looking for effective interventions online to use with your children is, if you're reading through let's say, an article on X, Y, and Z website, and you come across a certain technique, do they link that technique to a paper at the bottom, to a research article? Is there like a superscript 1 or 2 or 3 that you can click on that will lead you to a link to a paper? Or this study published in X, Y, and Z journal demonstrates that this was what happens. That is a really great sign that there is potentially some data behind it backing this up, right? And we don't expect anybody here to be flipping through journals of psychology or behavior, anything like that. That's not what we want you to do. But we want to help you figure out, when you're looking for the right thing, how to identify something that is actually going to be evidence-based and therefore much more likely to be effective with your children. Another great resource that you now have at your fingertips is this podcast and everything that we have to offer you on the Momentum Parenting website. Whether that's our courses, that's our group parenting pods, right, our group coaching, all of those resources. We have digital downloads. We have all sorts of amazing materials for you to use. And everything in there is always going to be evidence-based. We're not going to put something in there that is not evidence-based and backed by the literature. So if you're interested in learning more about some of the courses that we have to offer, the programs that we have to offer, please visit our website, momentumparenting.com. You can keep on listening in on this podcast. We're going to be talking about so many great topics every week that at least some of them will be relevant to you and your family.
All of them.
I think
Jill.
all of them.
All of them.
All of them. We're going to have some great guest lecturers, guest speakers. So please keep joining us. We will be putting out there some Ask Me Anythings on our Instagram. So follow us on Instagram at Momentum Parenting. And when we put out those calls for what do you want to learn more about, please let us know. We really want to know. Yep.
Absolutely.
So that we can help you the best way possible.
All right. So this is Dr. Roseanne.
And this is Dr. Jill. Remember that parenting is a marathon, not a sprint.
And we are here to help you keep your momentum going. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody.